All right, friends, welcome to Auburn's Lead with Love series. If you are new to Auburn or new to this space, we are glad you are here. And if this is the first time that you're hearing it today, I want to let you all know we love you very much. And we're very, very grateful looking at everyone in the chat. At least everyone who's here, we love you very, very much and grateful that you showed up. Auburn is a 10-generation organization. We've been around for over 200 years with a mission to identify and equip leaders from the pulpit to the public square to build community, bridge divides, pursue justice, and heal this world. And we do this through leading with love. If you all have been following our journey, Auburn's journey, we lead with love is our tagline. It's right there behind Emma, the Reverend Dr. Emma Jordan-Simpson, Auburn's president. And it's more than just a tagline to us. It's our way of being. It's our how we have been trying to lead here at Auburn together and with this institution. And part of this series is to explore, what does that mean? What does leadership mean? What does love mean? What do those things mean together as we are moving about this world from very different starting places, different contexts, different imaginations about the world, but with a shared love for each other and the work. So what's going to happen is, after a conversation between Auburn's president and I about what does lead with love, after a little bit of framing, we'll have some time to break out into small groups to get to know each other. And Emma's going to offer a question or two for us to kind of wrestle with and meet each other. Part of the hope is that we see each other as a community of loving, centered leaders who might support each other in our various work wherever we may be and grounded where we are. So I want to get us started, invite us into a brief practice of what it means to love. What does it mean to be invited into a loving space? So if you, wherever you are, if you can get comfortable, go ahead and take a deep breath in and out. Take one more deep breath in and out. I'm going to ask you to call to mind someone who loved you more than anything. Call to mind someone who might have called you beloved. Someone who looked at you with joy. Just at your very being. As you bring to that person to mind, I want you to think of those times, those spaces that they made you feel loved. It could be those times of the warmth of a hug, the gift of their listening presence. It could be their smile, their laughter. But bring to mind a moment when you knew you were loved by them. As you hold this person who loved you more than anything, and this memory of how they made you feel loved, we're going to come out of this meditation so we can hear a little bit from Emma. But before we do, I want you to go ahead and drop their name in the chat. Bring them into this space. Who loved you into being? I'm loving the names. For those who will watch the recording after, I encourage you to call to mind someone who loves you. And for all those on this call, thank you. Love is directed at someone, and you are all beloved. And we are glad you are here. So Emma, I'm going to turn to you as we have this conversation about lead with love. And I got 2 points of reference. We always want to start with something that's grounded in tradition, grounded in the text, our shared text. So I'm going to start with scripture. Matthew 22, verses 37 to 39. This will be familiar for most people, the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. I want to pair this text in conversation with James Baldwin, who said, love is a battle, love is a war, love is a growing up. That's from Nobody Knows My Name. So Emma, as you have extended this invitation to love, I want to ask you, what is love? How do you enter into this conversation about lead with love?
So first I want to offer a gratitude for the grounding that you just gave us. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to remember my Aunt Henrietta and my Aunt Doris, these 2 amazing Black women who let me be a child, who never had expectations that I would be more than what I was, which is a struggle in at least among Black women and girls, where we're forced to be grown long before we are grown. And you just gave me an opportunity to remember these women loving me by letting me be who I was and protecting me to be who I was. So thank you for that. I'm excited about being here and having this conversation with you and answering this question. For me, leading with love has never been about sentiment, right? Yeah, I've been in love. I am in love still. And I'm not talking about that kind of love in this conversation. I'm talking about love that is about the actions we take, the decisions we make, the choices that we make. And I'm always asking myself, who am I as a leader in these times? And I underscore these times. The scripture and the quote that you shared are living. They're timeless, and they encourage us to ask who we are in our time, but in these times. And I say that because different times call for different kinds of leadership. And that's not a conclusion about like adaptability. That's more about a deep understanding that different times call for different leaders and different leadership and opportunities and possibilities, like for more voices to rise. And then I think it's important for me to think about that as institutions are shifting and the world is changing and the ground is changing, up under us. But I begin with self. Who am I as a leader in these times? And what's needed from me as a leader in these times? What is the gift that I can offer for these times? And, uh, what do I want to leave for the people and for the communities and the institutions that matter to me, the issues, that matter to me. And if someone in the future is reading the letter that is my life, what will my leadership in these times convey about the hope that I held for and the choices that I made for the kind of future that would be possible for them? And Baldwin is just blowing my mind. The whole notion that love is a growing up. It's a growing up. It's not just being grown. It's not just about aging. It's not just about getting older. It is a embracing. It's a leaning into a growing up. And I believe that love demands our growing up. Love helps us to grow up, and not just to age, not just to get older. In my own leadership journey, when love demanded that I grow up, and as I mentioned earlier, these two women that you gave me an opportunity to remember today, created space for me, for that growing up to be natural, to be age appropriate, for me not to have to take on issues and burdens that were beyond my capacity. And so I'm grateful for that. Love means maturing in how I hold power, how I hold disappointment, how I hold hope, how I hold truth. And it compels me to keep learning. That's the growing up, to keep learning how to tell truth without abandoning my tenderness, without abandoning my humanity, and to stay tender. That's part of my resistance, right? To stay tender without giving up accountability. So, last thing I'll say is that, what does growing up mean for me in this season of leadership here at Auburn? What does it mean for me in this season where I feel accountable um, for still holding hope for this world? That as it's shifting and changing and going crazy and spinning out of control, it means refusing to shrink my leadership into authority or like just affection, right? Refusing to shrink my leadership into authority or affection. It's the work of keeping the heart, the soul, the mind, right, in alignment with purpose, so that the way that I lead reflects who I believe God to be. And at Auburn, that means loving people, loving the people that I lead in on the staff, loving the people that we serve, enough to tell them the truth about the times that we're in, enough to create space for us to deal with the truth and the realities of the decisions that we have to make in service of that future, not just about today, certainly today, who we are today, but also in service of that future, and the urgency I, of this moment, which I hold very different. It's not reactionary, not how we react to this moment, but um, how we honor the truth of this moment, um, and how we steward power, become stewards of power, and what we're building for those who are coming after us. So I put that, on the table of where it begins with me first. In the question that I ask myself, like, who am I in this season? Who am and what kind of leadership am I offering in this? What do these times need from me uh, in relationship to the future that I'm hoping and dreaming about? And then what does that mean for how I lead, here at the seminary, how I lead in my congregation, how I lead in my family, and in my community? Those are all um, important things. And the last thing I really am a Baptist, you can tell, right? The last thing I'll say, because I'm sitting here and I'm looking at your face, that love is also about succession. That leading with love is also about succession. It's love as letting go. It's love as stepping up, and creating space for leaders to step up. It's every season of leadership eventually calls for us to make space for other people, for those who are coming forward, and to prepare the way for new voices and new visions. We desperately need uh, new visions, and it means trusting that the work that I've done doesn't end with me, that the work that I've done is important for this time. It has implications for the future, but that the one who comes after me will also have work, important work to do that will have an impact on this future that I hold hopes and dreams about. And if we've done it right, in terms of like thinking about succession as love too. If those of us who are leading institutions, who are leading in congregations and in communities, if we've done it right, then it means that we're also deeply investing in the leaders who will be coming after us, because it's not all about us. So there ends my Baptist.
I'm gonna pick up right there where we are because I have one more question, then we're gonna break up into small groups in this conversation. But I think that last point is really hard. You mentioned the
Mhm,
times, you mentioned
mhm,
it's a growing up, that the anxiety and the tyranny of now of
mhm,
what is happening in the world
mhm,
for so many of us in leadership, that if it's we were invited because we have special gifts or talents, and we
mhm,
think we have something unique to offer the world. Everything you said at the beginning, I feel loved and I feel like I have something to offer the world. But what you just
mhm,
invite us into in this futuring of love, that there's a future vision, I think is really hard to do. Like I think
mhm,
that in my work with emerging leaders, the doors aren't always open as you have opened them to future leaders. That there is it's my turn to lead now.
mhm.
How would you imagine that? Like what does that look like in practice, that succession planning, the actual leading for future generations? What does that love look like when people they need to maintain a paycheck and they need
Mhm,
to have a job and keep a job
mhm,
to make ends meet? How do you see
mhm.
leading with love playing out in that way?
I think one of the most important characteristics of a leader is the ability to engage in self-reflection that's truthful, like not navel gazing, but self-reflection. And um, My life is not the work. My identity is not the work. Um, and I need to challenge myself consistently to be more than the job that I have. And that's true in all the ways that I think that the job that I have is important. But when we build our identity and our egos and all of those things, like around a position, around a title, it becomes difficult to let go. And it also becomes difficult to imagine that there is an expansion of vision, that there are leaders, that there are others who see a road and see further down the road um, that you see. And maybe if our practice was more of bringing folks along with us, and not seeing ourselves as the last word, um, trying to be intentional about the intergenerational engagement. I'm like maybe 2 days older than you, right? But our work together has been uh, about an intergenerational imagination. And I feel blessed and uh, lucky, even uh, to have had that experience. And so maybe if there was like, what is the first thing one does when one even wants to embrace love as succession, is to think about who are you walking with, who's journeying with you, and what are your practices for making space for other people to lead, for others to bring their gifts to bear, and understanding that the world needs more than you, and the world needs more than your voice. And it's an act of love to make sure, or do what you can to make sure that the world has more than you, more than your voice.
I love that
That answer?
invitation to bring more to the table. And
Mm-hmm.
with that, we will transition to a small group so we can get to know each other in the groups as a way of bringing more voices. And we said on the invitation that part of this space was to create a community that where more people can speak into and explore what does leading with love mean for them in their space. But you have some questions for us before I open these breakout rooms. So Emma,
Mm-hmm.
what would
Mm-hmm.
you encourage us to think about as we explore what leading with love looks like?
First, I want for people to really stay and to um, go into these breakouts because you need community. You need to have other people that you're walking with. And so, a question that I would ask is, what is this season of um, your leadership? What is the season of your leadership? And if you were writing a letter to yourself, what would you say about this season of your leadership? Talk about that.
All right, I'm gonna open up the rooms and we'll see you back in about 20, you'll have about 20, 25 minutes with each other and we'll see you back in the main space.